It's another edition of Behind the Mic with AudioFile magazine. I'm Joe Reed. I have Leslie Fine with me, and she's casting a wide net. It's variety this week.
It is, and today is going to be some poetry.
Oh, what are we listening to?
We are listening to a collection called Devotions, the selected poems of Mary Oliver, and it's read by Kimberly Farr.
Well, this is interesting because I know this is an earphones winner
Yes.
because Laura Rossi talked about it on our earphones special that we
Yes.
do each month. So, this was one that she was listening to and she loved it. So you tell me more about it.
Oh, I loved it too. I really did. So this is an extensive collection of Mary Oliver's poetry. If you're familiar with Mary Oliver, you kind of know her subject matter, amazing depictions and reflections on nature and anything you can imagine.
Mhm.
This has all of those incredible images, these places, these thoughts and meanderings of the mind. I always think if you're not sure if poetry is for you, like, "Oh, I don't know if I wanna listen to poetry," this is the audiobook to really get you started in maybe exploring, because I think anyone can identify with Mary Oliver, and Farr's performance is great. It is just outstanding.
Well, Farr has narrated Mary Oliver before with Blue Pastures and then a poetry handbook, which was a best of for AudioFile for 2024. So clearly she has an affinity not just for poetry, but most particularly for this poet.
Oh, I think it's evident when you start listening. I feel like she just becomes this it's just a masterful voice performing. I mean, I think sometimes poetry can be challenging to read out loud, but it's wonderful to hear it out loud. You don't necessarily want to get caught up in where the lines end. You want to read for meaning, and she does such a good job with that.
Yeah, I
It
agree.
really is such a delight to listen to.
And I think the other thing, if especially if people are unsure about poetry, you can listen to a poem or 2. You don't have to, like, barrel through an entire audiobook. You can
Exactly.
just pick what speaks to you. I don't pick up poetry a lot, but boy, when I do, those poems just go straight to my heart.
Well, and I feel like this collection, that's a great way to describe a lot of the pieces in this collection. Especially, I was listening to this appropriately outdoors. I do volunteer work where I walk dogs, and I was out there with the dogs, and I thought, "Oh my goodness." I am, watching the birds and listening to her poetry talking about
Mhm.
birds and clouds and dogs, and I thought, "Well, this is just perfect." But you're right, you can kind of dip in and out of it. You can listen to a couple of poems and go listen to something else and come back, and it's always there waiting for you, and it really
Exactly.
is. So it's such a great collection.
And of course, April is National Poetry Month.
Yes, right? It's
So the
perfect.
timing is kind of perfect. So I know you have an excerpt. What are we going to listen to?
So this is an excerpt from the poem entitled Storage.
This is Devotions, the selected poems of Mary Oliver by Mary Oliver, read by Kimberly Farr, and we're going to hear an excerpt from the poem Storage.
I rented a storage space and filled it. Years passed. Occasionally I went there and looked in, but nothing happened, not a single twinge of the heart. As I grew older, the things I cared about grew fewer, but were more important. So one day, I undid the lock and called the trash man. He took everything. I felt like the little donkey when his burden is finally lifted. Things! Burn them! Burn them! Make a beautiful fire. More room in your heart for love, for the trees, for the birds who own nothing, the reason they can fly.
Well, A, this poem particularly speaks to me right now, but we'll just let that one rest.
Me too.
But her reading is it's perfect in my ears, because I feel like Kimberly understands and trusts the text. She
Oh,
lets the words
yes.
play. She's not rushing you through it.
I love that. What a beautiful way to put that. I think that's a great way to describe it, trusting the text.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's so important. I mean, for any narrator, but particularly if you're gonna narrate poetry.
It's just, such a great collection, especially as I mentioned, this time of year. It just I don't know, it takes you somewhere, but it also makes you think just enough. Like, you don't have to think too deeply, but it will affect you. There's this beautiful emotional connection that is created by the poet and by the narrator.
That is Devotions, the selected poems of Mary Oliver by Mary Oliver, read by Kimberly Farr. Leslie, thank you so much, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Dreamscape is the publisher of today's episode of Behind the Mic. Dreamscape publishes audiobooks from authors like Frida McFadden, Kirsten Proby, and Stasia Stark. Explore their full catalog at dreamscapepublishing.com.